JSB Talks Digital.
Hello and welcome to JSB Talks Digital, the podcast for marketers, digital change champions, and those of you bringing your skills into the digital age. I'm Joanne Sweeney-Burke, and this podcast is brought to you by Digital Training Institute. In this episode, I talk radio and social and how they are perfectly matched in the digital age to grow audiences both offline and online. In social media news, a new study highlights the importance of reviews to convert local search traffic into sales. Facebook Messenger reaches 1.2 billion users, and Snapchat launches Snap to Store measurement. I interview Teresa Hanratty, project manager with Learning Waves, the training partner of the independent radio sector in Ireland. In shoutouts, 3 radio stations nailing it on social. Introducing my new feature, Ask JSB. In JSB's column, how the radio sector can use its voice on social media to grow audience share. And find out what podcasting tool saved my working week.
Social media news.
Online reviews and ratings of businesses on websites like Yelp, Facebook, Google and TripAdvisor have the power to shape consumer behaviour. That's according to a new study by Review Trackers. The results reinforce the importance of online reviews for increased web traffic and online reputation. Here's some of the study's key takeaways. Over 50% of consumers often or always check out online reviews, while only 34% seek out information on discounts and pricing. 36% of consumers agree that Google reviews, reviews on other websites, and local search rankings are the most important factors when looking for a business. 68% of consumers say that at least half of their searches result in a visit to a local business. These visits then eventually translate into sales, with at least half of local searches eventually leading to a purchase for 58% of consumers. 63% of consumers believe that online reviews are important or very important when choosing a local business, and only 3% do not consider reviews when making a purchase decision on a local business. I've got a link to the full study on the blog associated with this podcast. Facebook Messenger has now more than 1.2 billion monthly users, up from 1 billion users in July. Messenger's user growth has rocketed since Facebook launched the messaging service as a standalone app in 2014. Facebook has since added a suite of new features to Messenger, with games, a chatbot platform, voice calling, video calling, and a revamped camera with masks, frames, stickers, and effects. It also launched Messenger Day, which sees your messages self-deleting after 24 hours. Let's not forget that Facebook also owns WhatsApp, but CEO Mark Zuckerberg says that in general, WhatsApp serves as a replacement for text messaging, whereas Messenger is a more expressive and rich environment with a broad range of content. Snapchat has launched Snap to Store measurement. One of the big criticisms of Snapchat is its lack of analytics and our ability as marketers to measure ROI. From fad to frank business return, business-savvy marketers always want measurability. Despite boasting 158 million active daily users, Snapchat is still struggling to monetize through advertising. Snapchat's new Snap to Store feature, however, might win the cynics back. The dashboard shows advertisers how many people visited their location and who have seen the brand's ad on Snapchat, as well as how many visitors did not see the ad but who use Snapchat. This limits the potential for a lot of smaller brands because you have to have at least 1,000 Snapchat users visit a location. Snapchat's Snap to Store measurements only track the most recent 7-day window. But the dashboard does also include a chart plotting the first time people visit a location that uses a 28-day window. According to research commissioned by Snapchat, 80% of Snapchat users take snaps in restaurants, 66% use the app in shopping malls, 50% are active while at the gym, and 49% use it in airports, underlying the potential value of the offering.
Interview.
In today's show, I speak to Teresa Hanratty, Project Manager with Learning Waves. Learning Waves is a network member organisation representing all of the independent commercial radio stations in Ireland. Set up in 2004, it provides training for those working at all levels of radio. The network is funded by skills nets and member subscriptions. To date, they have trained over 6,000 people working in radio in Ireland. Teresa, you're very welcome to JSB Talks Digital. Thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you, Joanne.
So first of all, tell us a little bit more about Learning Waves and the type of training you provide. I believe you're actually at a training course today.
Yes, I'm here actually in SureSkills in Fitzwilliam Place in Dublin, where we're finishing off a 7-week digital marketing diploma course, which will give people a level 5 internet marketing certificate from FETAC. And that's just one of the many courses that we've been providing. As we said, we were set up in 2004, and all of the independent radio stations are part of the Learning Waves network, which, as you said, is part funded through SkillNet and then through the radio stations themselves. And I suppose over the last number of years, our courses have changed significantly, but also the core courses that we've been delivering since 2004 have remained very strong. So we've been delivering courses in the areas of speech and voice training for people who are on air in the radio stations, also legal training in terms of what you can and can't say on the radio, and then other courses that we do provide are cut across the sales areas, the IT areas, engineering, finance and management. So essentially, all other courses that we would provide would be akin to being courses that are run in any other industry, with the unique, I suppose, difference in what Learning Waves does is the on-air output and the training courses that focus around it.
So, as you know, I used to work on radio and now I work in the whole area of digital and online marketing. And I've always thought that radio presenters and journalists have had an edge and an advantage when they move into this industry. Do you think that your members actually realise the storytelling advantage that they have in the digital age?
Yes, Joanne, I do think they realise the advantage that the digital age offers them, and I suppose particularly through some of the courses that we've been delivering over the last 2 to 3 years, such as mobile journalism and our digital marketing course that I just mentioned. Stations are now beginning to tell stories on many different platforms, and those platforms would include the likes of YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all stations have seen significant increases in audiences on those platforms over the last number of years. And while they do realise that they are natural storytellers and they've all got great stories to tell and can tell them, I guess the issues around it are resources and time required to get those stories. First of all, the main output must be on air, but then the resources and the time required to get your stories out on the digital platforms is where the challenges are for people working in the industry at the moment.
And I guess that's the same when it comes to social media. It offers a huge advantage to extend reach and to leverage social to increase radio listeners. But the other side of that is that, you know, time on social media is extra time that busy radio presenters may not have. Do you think that's a challenge?
It is a challenge, yeah, it's a huge challenge. And I suppose since, you know, and all industries have been affected since the recession hit in 2008 and 2009. The radio industry has been significantly impacted by that in terms of revenue and resources. And at the same time, the social media, digital, I suppose, child has grown and has come up alongside that as well. And radio stations have been, I suppose, finding their feet in relation to it. And we would describe digital, I guess, as the new kid on the block. But we do think radio has a lot to offer and to teach this new kid. And you know, the industry has made significant impacts in terms of getting their brand out there through social media, in connecting with younger audiences. The whole transfer of listening on digital platforms has now been massive in terms of how audiences are consuming content. The last JNLR listenership figures show that radio in Ireland, you know, of all the radio stations, when you take them together, they have over 7 million social media connections. And that's a massive opportunity for stations to be able to tell their stories, to get their brand out there and to somehow generate revenue on the back of it. And I think radio, it's still a fantastic medium, still has huge listenership and has maintained that listenership through the tough times. But I think the digital platforms provide them with new opportunities and we're still learning about, I suppose, how we can capitalise around those opportunities.
And podcasting is experiencing rapid growth rates with the proliferation of smartphones and on-the-go listening. How do you think the radio sector can capitalise on this trend?
Well, I think it's a huge opportunity for them, and as you know, Joanne, the radio industry knows how to produce quality content, and in turn can, as a result of that content, turn it out into quality podcasts. They have the content, they have the people, and they have the resources to be able to do this in-house. And then they also have the platforms to put them out on. There's lots of content available to stations to podcast, and it provides the industry with an opportunity to put their content out there to people, to people wherever they are, whenever they want to listen to it, and whatever platform they may want to listen to it on. And I think one of the most significant developments that the industry has made over the last number of years has been the development of the Irish Radio Player app, which is a one-stop app where you can find all of the radio stations in Ireland, and you can listen to your stations on mobile wherever you are and whenever you want. And it provides stations with an opportunity to podcast programmes on that app, where a listener can tune in at any time to whatever station they want to and hear snippets from a particular programme that they may have missed during the day. Again, it does provide them with huge opportunities, but the challenges are in resources that are within stations to actually put the content out there and to keep it up to date. And, we would find that you do have people saying to us that, we went to listen to it and it wasn't there. And that is the reason for that, is while stations are busy, the primary content will be what goes out on the air. And then this will be secondary content. And I guess more and more stations are investing in it. They are putting resources into it, and it will just take time, I guess, to get all of that content out there. But it's a huge opportunity for the sector.
And I have to say, I absolutely love that app. I thought it was a genius idea.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I could be out running and I'll say, gosh, I wonder what's happening up in Donegal, and I'll switch from Galway Bay FM to Highland Radio. I think it's absolutely magnificent. Now, tell me about audiences. Obviously, with 7 million social media fans across the independent radio network, that's massive. But do radio stations view audiences separately, as in, listeners, on-air listeners versus online, or do you view them as one audience?
I think there's more tendency now to view them as one audience, and they're now looking at how they can best serve these audiences. I think they'll strive to serve both the FM listeners and the online listeners in the same way. The online provides stations with opportunities, I think, to get new listeners, to reach new audiences and to spread their message. And the FM listeners have been the backbone of the industry, and I think stations are now looking at how best they can serve both of them equally, while they will also, and will always look at measuring, who's listening on the FM and who's listening online. That will always be looked at separately. But I think, behind the scenes in radio stations, there's a huge drive there now to, we've got one listener, we're providing the content to that listener, and that content has to be provided wherever and whenever that listener wants to listen to us. So I think they're more and more becoming one.
And it's such an exciting time for radio. So finally, Teresa, we're going to be collaborating on some training courses. I guess I'm bringing my days of radio and podcasting and digital to bear. So tell my listeners a little bit about that.
Yeah, and that's something that we're really, really excited about. I guess I had the opportunity to meet you about a month ago, and I think, for Learning Waves SkillNet, there will be a huge opportunity to be gained from collaborating with yourself and the Digital Training Institute in looking at, new programs that we can bring to the industry in terms of how writing for the web and how radio stations might do that, how they can analyse metrics and measure how their content on the various different platforms is performing. Looking at how we can brand and market podcasts much more, I think is going to be hugely exciting for the industry. And as you know well, Joanne, that the whole social media thing and the digital environment is constantly changing. There's new opportunities there's new platforms coming on, there's new ways of doing things. And as the radio industry, we need to keep up to date in terms of how we're doing that. Are we up to date in terms of the platforms that we're using? What are the new platforms offering to radio stations? And I think through yourself and the Digital Training Institute, that's something that we, Learning Waves and hence the radio industry will gain from. And I think it's a huge opportunity for us, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I know people within the industry are really excited about it. Like, we put out some of the training courses that we agreed on last week on a training calendar that was sent out to everybody on Thursday, and we've got a huge response to it already. So I think it's going to be huge huge opportunities for both parties in this partnership as we go forward.
Absolutely, and it gives me the unique opportunity to combine two of my passions, radio and digital, so I'm really looking forward to it. Teresa, thank you so much for joining me on JSB Talks Digital. To find out more about Learning Waves, you can log on to their website, learningwaves.ie. You can also follow them on Twitter at Learning Waves, and make sure you like their Facebook page, facebook.com/Learning Waves.
Shoutouts.
In this part of the show, I give shout-outs to brands, organisations and individuals whose work online is worth talking about. In today's show, I'm sharing 3 innovative uses of social media by radio stations and presenters.
1.
Doireann Garrahy is an entertainment reporter with Dublin-based Spin 1038 and Spin Southwest. She is also a Snapchatter and was named Best Snapchat Star in the 2017 Gossies Awards. Doireann, with a background in drama and theatre, brings her impersonation skills to life. Her impressions of Irish bloggers on Snapchat went viral last year, and you can watch it on the blog associated with this podcast. Doireann is a great example of how radio presenters can leverage their own social media accounts to build up a tribe, both on social and on radio. Doireann is also harnessing the power of social to engage with millennials and Gen Z. Add Doireann on Snapchat at DG19592.
2.
I love listening to sports shows on radio. So it's no surprise then that I also love listening to sports podcasts. For me, it's simply giving me a choice to listen in my own time when I'm on the go. I honestly don't know why more radio presenters aren't capitalising on the growth in podcasts and leveraging social to gain greater personal brand engagement and radio listenership. Off the Ball have 4,441 followers on SoundCloud, so not a bad community of engaged listeners, separate to their radio show on News Talk. They also have a series of shows created into playlists, so you can choose your sporting genre, from GAA to football, Golf Weekly or League of Ireland. Subscribe to the podcast at offtheball.newstalk.com/player/podcasts. You can also follow the show on social media, on Twitter at Off the Ball, Snapchat _ball, and Instagram Off the Ball NT.
3.
I have to give a shout out to Highland Radio's Sean Doherty Show, one of the most popular morning talk shows in Ireland. I should also note that I worked as a broadcast journalist on the station after graduating. Sean has amassed a massive audience in the station over his 25 years there, and he has managed to capitalise on the digital age by podcasting his shows, which are hugely popular among the Donegal diaspora and even those working night shifts. Sean has also gone front of screen and is often seen going live on Facebook, streaming from outside broadcasts and even from Africa, where he's been doing some charity work of late. You can find all his podcasts on the Highland Radio website. Log on to highlandradio.com/the-Sean-Doherty-show.
Ask JSB.
I'm delighted to launch a new feature on JSB Talks Digital. Ask JSB brings the voices of my listeners onto the show. So you now have an opportunity to ask me a question, have it aired on the podcast, and I'll respond directly to you. Here's my first 2 questions from 2 of my biggest and most loyal fans.
Hi JSB. My question for you is, what is the most important content type for your business?
Thanks for your question, Jamelia. So I would honestly have to say that the most important content type for my business is my podcast. I've been doing this podcast for almost a year, and I have to say that it's brought me some of the best clients that I've had in many years. It's brought me to international stages and to boardrooms, and it's introduced me to some great people that I otherwise would not have met. Thanks for your question. It was a great one.
Mom, what's your favourite Snapchat feature?
Thanks for your question, Bobby. Well, my favourite Snapchat feature has to be geo-filters. As you know, JSB Talks Digital is always out and about, on the go, on a plane, on a train, or in the car somewhere. So the first thing that I do when I reach a new destination and a new location is check Snapchat for the geo-filters. I want to give you a voice on JSB Talks Digital. Ask me a question. Simply log on to digitaltraining.ie/askjsb and you might find yourself and your question on air.
JSB's column.
In today's column, I wanted to discuss how the radio sector can leverage social media to grow its audience base offline and online. As you heard in my interview with Teresa, I'm embarking on a project with Learning Waves, the independent radio sector's training partner in Ireland. As a former radio journalist and all-round radio head, this feels like the perfect collaboration. I have a huge appreciation for the spoken word, so it's no surprise that I turned my attention to podcasting almost a year ago. Getting back behind the mic on a weekly basis has helped me explore new topics, keep on top of weekly changes in social media, as well as interviewing and making connections with some fascinating people from all industry types who are using social and digital marketing tactics. So while I promote JSB Talks Digital as an education marketing podcast for those interested in digital and social, I equally learn from each show, and that keeps me relevant and my knowledge current. Coming from a radio background, I can see quite clearly the opportunities that exist for this sector. I equally understand that the recession and streamlining of the industry in the country has resulted in underinvestment and even stagnation in terms of digital growth. However, we are now at a time when digital is at the forefront of everybody's mind, and organisations, senior executives and staff are ready to learn, and in fact, I'd say they are hungry to learn. So here's my take on how the radio sector can leverage social media to grow their audience base. A radio station makes its money based on its listenership, which is driven by programming and personalities. But here's the top 3 ways radio stations can leverage social right now. Firstly, news gathering. A pivotal role in every aspect of the radio station is news gathering. News, sports, current affairs, entertainment, music, every show has a responsibility to engage in news gathering. It used to be a cumbersome task, making a series of phone calls to get the right source and unleash the details of the story. However, now we can get to the source much quicker using social media. When I worked in radio, we had a contacts book with a list of people we would contact when a particular story would raise its head. But things have changed. Audience want new voices and new opinions. Secondly, audience engagement. On radio, listeners can text, call, email, and ultimately come on air to have their voice heard. But with the arrival of social media, we can extend that on-air conversation by using a particular topic hashtag and inviting followers and fans to have their say. Content promotion. The bread and butter of radio stations is listenership. So why not leverage digital platforms such as SoundCloud to increase your base numbers, albeit from an online perspective? If you want to learn more about how you can leverage social for radio or indeed for podcasting, then drop me an email to joanne@digitaltraining.ie.
Social media tool of the week.
The social media tool that saved my working week is SpeakPipe. My new feature on the show, Ask JSB, will be facilitated by SpeakPipe. So if you have a burning social media or digital marketing question, then you can now leave a voicemail on my website. You can install the SpeakPipe widget on a self-hosted WordPress website. If you have WordPress.com, you have the option of creating your personal voicemail page on SpeakPipe and adding a link to the voicemail page to your blog. There are 3 different ways to use SpeakPipe on your website. First, install an inline widget. You can embed SpeakPipe directly into a blog post or web page. An inline widget provides flexibility, and you can give the widget context by embedding it directly into the content on your website. A dialog widget is when you add the SpeakPipe side button to your website. It allows your visitors to access the SpeakPipe dialog widget from any page on the website. And then finally, your voicemail page. This is where you create a personal page on SpeakPipe without installing anything on your website. If you share the link to the page with your customers, they can use it to send you voice messages. And of course, you heard how SpeakPipe works earlier on this show. So go on, ask JSB, log on to my voicemail page at digitaltraining.ie/askjsb. Or if you want to learn more about SpeakPipe or sign up, log on to speakpipe.com. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of JSB Talks Digital. As always, I have everything discussed on today's show on my blog at digitaltraining.ie. To ensure you never miss an episode, make sure you subscribe on your smartphone, on iTunes or on Stitcher. You can also subscribe on SoundCloud. I'd love your feedback on the show and of course on my new feature, Ask JSB. So send me a tweet to @tweets by JSB or you can snap me to JSB Snap. I'm Joanne Sweeney Burke. This is JSB Talks Digital. Thanks for listening and I'll talk to you soon.
JSB Talks Digital.